Welcome to Treadmill Talks with Shannon Maves, a podcast for athletes and fitness enthusiasts to pass the time during mind-numbing cardio while I use my no-bullshit coaching style to educate, inspire, and entertain. I'm your host, Shannon Maves. Now let's walk and talk. Hello, and thank you for hanging out with me for episode 42 of Treadmill Talks, the one about lessons learned from competing. Random fact about me is that 42 is my favorite number, and this past year has had me doing a lot of reflecting on my career as a competitor. So I figured that episode 42 would be the perfect episode to share all of the lessons that I have learned over the years competing and explain how bodybuilding has truly changed my entire life for the better. First, I'm going to give a super quick Reader's Digest version of my story as a competitor for those who haven't heard it. In 2014, I went to cheer on a friend at a competition, and I thought to myself, hey, I want to try this. So I coached myself to do my first competition. Even though I had been working in the fitness industry for a while, and I had a foundation of knowledge with training, I didn't know that much about nutrition yet, and I had no clue about bodybuilding at this point. Mistakes were made. But I had fun and I learned a lot, which I will obviously get into more detail about here shortly. I didn't actually have any plans to ever do another competition after that one. It wasn't until 3 years later when I went to cheer on a different friend at her competition. And this time I thought to myself, what if I applied everything that I learned from that first experience to see if I can do even better? So I coached myself through another prep, and I did way better. I actually came in second place to the overall winner by just 1 point. And that is when my fire was lit. The next summer, I coached myself again and competed in 3 shows, one of which qualified me for nationals, which was the point when I knew I needed to hire a coach to help me get to that next level. If you're serious about competing, I highly recommend you do not coach yourself. I don't regret my decision because I learned a lot from it, but I would almost guarantee that I would have made it a lot further if I had hired a coach sooner. The following year, I worked with my first coach and competed in 4 competitions. Too many. Do not recommend. But I figured that since I had done so well on my own for my first 5 shows, that I would be fucking unstoppable now that I had a coach. And then I went to compete at my first national show where I was served a giant piece of humble fucking pie. Those girls are no joke. And I was a fucking shrimp. So my plan was to take the entire following year off from competing while I went into a long growing phase and did some fun traveling. But then COVID hit, and traveling became a thing of the past, and gyms shut down. I definitely started to spiral there for a minute, as I think most of us did. But luckily, I got my head screwed on back fairly quickly, and I realized that I needed something to kind of keep me motivated. So I actually ended up hiring a new coach and re-strategizing my entire plan for the year. And I ended up doing another competition that fall. It was definitely my best look to date, and I got my second national qualification. But after my first national experience, I was self-aware enough to know that I still needed to put on a good amount of size before getting up there again. So I ended up taking all of 2021 off to grow. In 2022, my coach and I decided that I was ready to compete again. The first show was kind of a mess. I had already been thrown some pretty big curveballs that year, and then my grandfather passed away just 10 days before my show. Placement aside, it was not my best show ever. I wouldn't say I regret competing at that show, but in retrospect, I should have pulled out of it. Determined to do better, I kept going, and I did much better at the next show just a couple months later. Even though I had made enough improvements that I felt comfortable enough with my physique to compete nationally, mindset wise, I knew it wasn't the best idea after how that year had gone. But I had put on enough size that I didn't really need to take another full year off to grow again. So I started prepping in early 2023 to finally compete at nationals again. Prep was going swimmingly. I was about 5 weeks out from my first show, looking the best I had ever looked. And I still had 5 more weeks to improve even more. And that's when I found out I was moving to Florida in 5 weeks. Not to sound dramatic, but it felt like everything that I had been working for was just ripped out from under me. And don't get me wrong, I am so stoked about our move to Florida. It's something that my husband and I had actually been discussing for a while beforehand, and we've been having a blast living out here. The timing is just what was such shit. So that's where I'm at now. Over the course of 9 years, I have competed in 12 different shows, the first 5 of which were self-coached. And this past year, I was in prep for the 7th time, getting ready to compete for my 13th time, and hoping to finally hold my own on that national stage. Now, again, don't get me wrong. I am so sincerely happy about the decision we made to move to Florida. It was a chance that we had to jump on, and I have absolutely no regrets about it. But 6 months later, it still burns when I think about all of the hard work that I put in and never got to receive any payoff, which is why I've been reminiscing a lot more about previous preps. And I've been really focusing more on the lessons I've learned over the years. Because as much as I obviously want to step on stage and get the full experience, I don't put myself through months of rigorous training just for a trophy. What I love about competing is the process. That is what has taught me the most valuable life lessons. The first, and probably one of the most obvious life lessons, is discipline. If I'm being honest, I was not the most disciplined person in the world growing up. There was a lot of shit that I just didn't see through. I would get bored and lose interest, or it would get too challenging for me and I would give up. Competing has taught me to stay the course and be consistent. I had been an athlete my entire life, but bodybuilding has been the only one where practically every decision I make every day could potentially affect the outcome on game day. There's a saying that goes, you will never always be motivated. You must learn to be disciplined. It's kind of an annoying saying because, I'd rather just be motivated all the time. But that saying really is so true. Having the discipline to do the boring shit and to do the hard shit is what is going to get you results, which is another lesson I've learned from competing. Delayed gratification. We've already established that I wasn't the most disciplined kid growing up, and some of that had to do with my desire for instant gratification. What can I say? I'm a millennial. But competing quickly taught me that doing the hard shit today can lead to an even greater reward tomorrow. Sure, I'd love to eat pizza and cookies every day while I sit on my ass and watch Netflix. But that temporary satisfaction is only going to lead to discomfort later down the road. If I remain disciplined, go to the gym, and eat nutritious food the majority of the time, then I am going to feel good 100% of the time. And then when I do decide to relax on my couch and indulge in a piece of pizza or some cookies or something, they literally just taste even better. When you're in prep and you've been going to the gym 2, sometimes 3 times per day for months on end, and you've been eating the same meals over and over and over again, and you're tired and you're hungry, motivation can be pretty hard to come by, which is when you've got to dig deep for the discipline and remind yourself that show day is going to be the greatest delayed gratification. Those 2 and even 3 days at the gym are part of what has taught me the next lesson: time management. I fully understand and can appreciate that we all have different responsibilities, some of us much more so than others, but we really do all have just 24 hours in a day. It's not about finding time to go to the gym or to prep your food. It's about making time for what is important to you. And when you're in prep, the gym and meal prep are very important to you. So you have to make time for them, which can sometimes be at the expense of other things. Honestly, do not come to my house when I am in prep, because cleaning gets put so far down on my list of priorities. I'm not completely disgusting and living in squalor or anything. I just don't keep the most Pinterest-worthy looking house. Prep can really shed some light on the things that are important to you. And suddenly you realize how much fucking time you've been wasting scrolling Instagram or comparing your house to the immaculate ones that you see on Pinterest. Once your priorities start to shift, your ability to say no to the things that don't serve you becomes stronger too, which is the next lesson I've learned from competing: how to set boundaries. No, I don't want to swing by Chick-fil-A on the way home from dinner. I'd rather run to the grocery store and get something that fits my plan. No, I don't want to have a glass of wine with dinner tonight because I want to wake up feeling refreshed and energized in the morning so that I can get a killer workout in. No, I don't want to blow off the gym. I'd rather step on stage knowing that I did absolutely fucking everything I possibly could to bring my best. People say that bodybuilding is a selfish sport, which I can kind of understand, but also, what's wrong with putting yourself first? Honestly, you should be your number one priority in life. You have to put on your oxygen mask before you can assist others with theirs. I think that women especially have a hard time saying no sometimes, and bodybuilding can give them that confidence they need to set those boundaries, which is the next thing I've learned from competing: confidence. Competing has given me so much more confidence. Like, holy shit, I can do hard things. I have the discipline to set boundaries and say no to drinks at social events. I accomplished everything on my to-do list today because I managed my time well. I am strong enough to push through cardio when I am exhausted because I know that the delayed gratification of show day will be better than the instant gratification I get by skipping cardio today. Feeling insecure about my body today? Well, cut that shit out and remember the time that you had the balls to step on stage in a teeny weeny bikini. You are a badass motherfucking bikini competitor. Who gives a shit what place you got? Did you bring your best? Yeah? Then fucking cool. That's all that matters. No need to compare yourself to anyone else up there. Leave that up to the judges. And remember that they don't know your personal journey or the tremendous amount of internal growth that you have had while you've been on your journey. The girl who placed ahead of you may have been doing this 10 times as long as you have. Or it might be her first show. It doesn't fucking matter. It's her journey. This is your journey. There is no point in comparing, which is another lesson that bodybuilding has taught me. Not to compare. I learned a lot of things from my first coach in 2019, but one of my favorites was a quote she taught me. Comparison is the thief of joy. It actually took a while after hearing it for that quote to really resonate with me, but I fucking love it now. And I apply it to a lot of other things in my life too. In a world that is so heavily influenced by social media, it can be hard not to compare sometimes. And I'm not just talking about body image, although that obviously applies, especially with bodybuilding. But I remember feeling really down one time when I was watching all of these Instagram stories on a Friday night where people were out with their friends doing super fun shit. And I started feeling really lonely and sad because I didn't have many friends in town anymore. And I was sitting home alone on a Friday night. But it was when I saw a boomerang of a group of girls that were cheersing their wine glasses that I all of a sudden had a realization. They are posting this to their story because it is a super fun and exciting time for them. They are posting it because it is not what they are usually doing. I realized that they don't share the mundane daily shit that we all do. Instagram really is quite literally a highlight reel. And then that quote popped in my head. Comparison is the thief of joy. Why am I comparing myself sitting home alone on a Friday night to these people who could have been waiting for who knows how long to get together for this one event? And why am I comparing my messy house to the picture perfect houses that I see on Pinterest? Those people have different priorities than me, which is totally cool for them. That's their life. And if taking a ton of time to live in a gorgeously pristine house brings them joy and fulfillment, cool. Not gonna lie, I wish I had that desire, but I don't. I'm happy using the time that I could be cleaning my house to go to the gym instead, because those are my priorities. And that's what makes me happy. So I shouldn't compare what makes me happy or my journey to others. Most of these lessons are ones that people could probably learn a lot of other ways too, though. They definitely aren't specific to bodybuilding. But there is one thing that competing has taught me personally that I don't know a ton of other ways I could have learned this otherwise, which is getting in tune with my body. This is something I did not learn by doing just one prep. I didn't even necessarily learn it from my second or my third prep. It's something that I have slowly learned over time, and it's something that I'm still learning because my body is constantly changing. But it was because of prep that I realized shit like having an egg intolerance. Unless you have an actual allergy, you never really know whether or not you have a food intolerance unless you do some type of elimination diet. And when you get closer and closer to a show, you are essentially doing kind of an elimination diet because your food choices become simpler and simpler, which is how I finally realized, oh, hey, eggs do not sit well with me. Sorry, everybody that was around me during that time of my life. Anyway, so I cut them out for the sake of my competition to get my digestion moving smoothly again. Only to find out months later that eggs were also affecting my sinuses. I literally thought my entire life that I was just a mouth breather, but I also had been eating eggs my entire life. It wasn't until I cut out eggs because of prep that I realized, oh, wait, I actually can breathe out of my nose. I just have to stop eating the shit that my body doesn't agree with. Over the years, I have gotten my diet dialed in so tight for periods of time that nowadays I know when I need more protein. I can tell when I haven't had enough carbs. I can feel when I need more sodium. And I understand why I wake up retaining more water some mornings. My mind-muscle connections during my workouts have improved substantially. And I know when my muscles are just sore versus when they aren't fully recovered. So, yeah, bodybuilding has taught me a shit ton of very valuable life lessons. Probably even more that I'm just not even thinking about right now. But I truly believe that if I hadn't started competing, I never would have had the balls or the discipline or the time management to start my own business. Sure, my business is related to fitness, but even if it weren't, competing has given me the skill set to do hard shit. It's taught me to get the fuck out of my comfort zone and start a podcast. I don't know when I'm going to compete again. If I'm being honest, this past year really put me through the ringer mentally, and I know that I am not in a place to start a prep anytime soon. I do plan to compete again eventually, though. But even if I don't ever compete again, I am so unbelievably grateful for this sport and how much it has shaped me into the person and the coach that I am today. So if you would like to compete and are interested in having me as your coach, click the link in the show notes to apply to work with me. Thank you for listening to Treadmill Talks. If this episode taught you something, lit a fire under your ass, or at least helped you forget how long you've been walking in place, please leave a review or take a screenshot to share on your social media. Don't forget to tag me at Shannon Maves so I can give you some love right back. And thanks again for listening to my Treadmill Talk.